right. Well, welcome to our Kairos Network webinar, 2021 Best Practices for Church Communication. I'm Matt Peoples, and I'm so excited for you all to be joining us today because we really have what I like to call the dream team of church communications right here. So I'd love to introduce you, invite you guys to go ahead and unmute your video and audio. But we have Meredith first to the gate here. Meredith does communications on a national level with the Youth Ministry Office. She's worked with all kinds of communications. So if you have to communicate to parents and kids, she feels your pain on a level I can't even imagine. And so thank you for joining us. Seth, I've known Seth for a while. He has done communication on a district level, working with local congregations, and then most recently is working with Pathfinder Church as their communications director, has also worked with the youth gathering. So Seth, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And then Emily Finke, she is communications director at one of my favorite churches in the Synod, The Point. And Emily also has been the front talent for social media, as well as doing National Youth Gathering on stage stuff. But she does a ton of incredible communication stuff in the local church. So I just want to thank you all for coming out and digging into this topic with us.
Absolutely. This is exciting. This is the best way to spend lunch.
It really is. If you need to eat, go ahead. So I want to let you guys know, I want you to interact. If you have questions, we've been throwing some stuff out on social media and have some good stuff from that. But if you have questions, comments go in the chat, throw those in there. We'll throw any links we talk about in there. We'll also do a follow-up PDF for you all so you don't have to take notes like crazy. And then also, if you have questions, if you can throw them into the Q&A, that would be awesome. And we'll use those to continue guiding our time as well. But I just personally, I'm a pastor in a local church. This is kind of like my hobby on the side, doing fun webinars with people. And, one of the things I've really come to value is just the work of communications in the local church and just how challenging it is, but how rewarding and impactful it can be. In fact, when our admin here took a new job, everybody's like, we need a new admin. I said, no, we're getting a communications coordinator because we're going to make way more of an impact that way in our church. And it's been so true. So I want to thank you all for digging into that. If you're on this webinar, you're doing incredible work that sometimes goes really unnoticed. So thank you. And I just want to kick off with you all on the questions. Throw out for me, what are some of the biggest mistakes you've made in communicating? Because I think we all need to hear the mistakes before we hear the best practices. Just give me one.
Not fact checking, but not second checking it. You just kind of, I heard it the first time, I'm gonna put it out there without checking with the long list of people that you probably should before putting it out, and getting a little miscommunication in that mix.
That's awesome. I love that.
We all do spell check errors, but one time I sent out a email to everyone, literally everyone, saying we were excited to eat new people, EAT. And so many people responded not okay with this, don't like the direction we're going with the new people. That was one of my worst spell check errors.
Oh my gosh. I can't top that at all. That's fantastic. Thankfully we've not gone that. I think, mine's more simple. It's putting a lot of work into something that just nobody ever cares about. Doing hours and hours for this printed piece, and then you're like, you know what, we could have just put this on the website. And so wasting time, wasting our time, wasting everybody's time, and not really thinking through how are people gonna use this? How are people gonna consume this content? So just not spending enough time thinking and making a plan, and then just doing everything, and then realizing that was a mistake. So yeah.
I think that's huge. And that kind of dovetails into the next question. 2020, probably a time where most people realized communications was more important than ever. And they felt it in kind of like a pressure cooker environment. For you all, what was one of the biggest challenges for you in 2020 when it came to church communication? And maybe how is that shaping how you're moving forward in 2021?
We realized that speaking from a larger like event type communication is that a lot of our audience, like our adult leaders, were not resourced to do stuff online. And they, instead of going to like their pastors, they were coming to us. How do we do youth ministry online? What does that look like? What do Bible studies look like online now? And so we were trying to get out resources as quick as we could to help these people do Zoom Bible studies and Zoom escape rooms, and just at the very beginning, learning how to use Zoom.
Oh, so true.
Yeah, like 2020 was such a weird year, right? That's my original thought. But at the first couple months were so exciting. Like, okay, how can we engage? What are these new things? And you're like, I mean, our online engagement just exploded, and it was awesome. And that felt really creative and fun. But then, a few months later, we actually leaned more into this. I mean, we still did the online stuff, but more physical communication than we've ever done before, or at least done in a while. We were like sending out postcards and sending out letters and like doing the more physical stuff because everyone got kind of burnt out. So now this year it's kind of, and for us specifically at the point, we have a building for the first time ever too. So that's a new, like the physical stuff is new for us. But now it's, going into this year, it's like, okay, so how do we use the internet presence for what it is and make it as good as possible? But hand in hand, now people are so burnt out from being online. How do we give quality physical stuff where that kind of stopped being a thing there for a little while? Like everything was online. So we're figuring that out this year.
That's huge.
Yeah. I think for us, it's kind of dovetails from what Emily was saying. People are burnt out, and we make the assumption that everything we put out online is seen and read and consumed by our people, and we're surprised when they miss things. I think for us, it is the physical piece. So we do a quarterly publication where when I first started, I'm like, why are we doing a magazine? That kind of thing. But actually, we've put more time into that and care into that to make that a professional looking thing. And my belief and understanding is that we're getting our readership is through the roof on it because we send it directly to people's houses. They're looking for a break from their devices. And so this gives that option to them. One of the things that kind of coincides with too much device time is our church decided to do right around election time, which was really nice for everyone, was a social media detox. And so it was something you could sign up, take a pledge for. We didn't force people to do it or anything, but they could join up and say, we're going to do 21 days intentionally off of social media specifically, not just technology, but social media. Technology is not all that bad, but sometimes we can get addicted into the rhythm of social. And so we, with a publication or with a detox, I think we have to think about how do we give our people permission to detach themselves from the things that they've become connected to too much, almost to the point of addiction. And so giving people breath and permission is how do we carry that forward and how do we continue to do that as a church?
That's huge because I think that's something we don't think a lot about is, oftentimes I think we can get in the trap of, okay, how do we communicate? How do we communicate with people? But, we're living in a time where the platforms are more saturated than ever before, where your device, like I think I heard Craig Rochelle say it on one of his podcasts, like you will touch your phone 2,000 times in a day. The average person, Seth, in our generation is going to spend 7 years on social media. Meredith and Emily, congratulations, your generation, 10 years of your life on social media. And so it's like, we want to communicate and use the platforms, but how do we also help people navigate the health of that and remain spiritually healthy and connected to Jesus in the midst of it all? Yeah. Wow. So cool idea. I'll probably be stealing that at some point, the social media talks. And I think, Will, you asked a really great question because Seth, you talked about the mailer and we've seen similar reaction to doing actual physical piece mailers. Like especially in our tithes and offerings, you know, we've got online tithe and offering and all that kind of stuff, but some people, it was just so much easier if they could like actually hold it in their hand. And so, you know, we mailed stuff out with self-addressed envelopes as well. And Will, you asked a great question. How do we afford mass mailers? I know you can spend just a boatload of money doing mass mailer. Something we've done, and I'm interested to hear what you all have done, is we just kind of take our email list, we make sure we're really targeted with it, our home address list, and we just literally get a team of volunteers to stamp, you know, all these different letters. So it's costing us like postage. But how do you all navigate that?
I mean, I think the reality is that everyone's budget's probably a little bit different. So we can't do it like an across the board answer to that. But it's redirecting some of the funds. It's saying this is a priority for us, and then doing that. It's finding smart ways to do it. I think postcards are cheaper to send than your average thing. It's working out your nonprofit rates and your bulk mailing rates, and trying to find ways to go about that. So, yeah, I don't know if I have a better answer than that.
No, I think
I would say postcards are always cheaper to send than an actual envelope with something in it. So you have to think about like, what are you asking people to do? If you're asking like the self-addressed thing, I love that. I think that's really smart. But then, yeah, if it's an event announcement or something like that, postcard just makes sense, and it's like half the price, I'd say. But so you just have to weigh everything out.
Yeah, I think that's huge, Seth. And I think too, you also brought up a really important point. Like, I think sometimes we have the idea and we try the first pathway, and the first pathway doesn't work. And so sometimes we abandon the idea instead of boiling it down to, okay, well, why did we want to do that in the first place? And is there another way or another pathway we could try to try and hit that same thing? Because like for us, you know, doing individual little, we had volunteers drop stuff off at people's houses for kids ministry stuff. And that started as we wanted to mail boxes to everybody. And then we realized mail can be really expensive, especially when you want to send anything with any weight to it. I was like, but a volunteer and their gas is much, much better for the church budget. But we kind of had to boil it down to the why. It's like, why do we want to do this? Oh, we want to make a connection in a tangible way. Well, how else can we do that? So I think those are great questions to ask too. Okay, so David asked us, what are the best practices for moving a church from having a parish administrator for 30 years to moving congregation's mindset to a communications coordinator? We only have funding for one position. Yeah, and that goes also, Seth, you shared, somebody posted on the Facebook page, like, how do we just get congregations to see the value of a communications coordinator or what a communications person does?
I would say, you know, bringing them into the conversations. A lot of people, a lot of those conversations, especially staffing, happen on like leadership level. This is like the senior pastor making these decisions, but bringing people in to have an open conversation and kind of showing them like, this is how this person is going to help us live out this mission, I think was really helpful. Even more so now that people have lived in this all online life, they kind of understand like, yeah, that is a lot of work and that is really important. And I really enjoy following, you know, my grandma's church 2 states away. And I like being a part of that. And I think people now are open to have that conversation and at least have a little bit more insight to what those communication roles actually look like.
Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah, I've noticed that like whole families are engaging from states away. And they really do, I think now more than ever, see it as their church. So it becomes another person connecting, you know, and that's so vital. You know, there's 2 questions that popped in here, and then I want to get into the real meat question that we were going to ask, which is, I'm really curious, so you all can think about it for a second while I throw out these other 2 questions. What are some of the things that you're trying differently in 2021, or what are your 2021 kind of focus areas when it comes to communication? But then Seth, there was a question in here. How do you all encourage your community during your time of social media detox? Because you all use social media as a main communication platform as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. We have somebody who does half of their job is social media, and so they're just doing that for the church, and we also have a school. How we're encouraging people, I think early on, something that we decided to do was we have a larger staff than some, but we took our entire database and divided it up by like 20. And so we had 20 people on staff, or so whatever it is for you guys, just divide and conquer. But we made an intentional point of we are going to write notes of encouragement to all these people and send them like a physical mailer. So they're actually getting something with a handwritten thing. And then we were going to call everybody. So we made the point of we're going to have phone, or we're going to call them. And if we talk for 5 seconds, great. If we talk for 5 hours, great. But we were going to make that personal touch really important. And I think the trap that's so easy to fall into is there's all this technology and all these ways to automate things and personalize them when they're really, I think we all can sniff through some of that when you're going through a chat bot sort of thing. I'm going to go off on a tangent, but like, I think you feel it when you like call a customer service rep and then like, it's kind of like a robot and then you get stuck in this thing. And then like when you call another company and it's like, you're surprised when it's like, wait, hold on. How did I get a real person in like less than a minute?
Yeah.
And you're like, so happy. And I think we're all craving and so frustrated with the automated surge that happened because we were like, we can be more effective and more productive and get better numbers. But people don't want that. They crave the personal touch right now. And so it's whether it's through an email that is just to one person or a handwritten note or a phone call, I think you have to find ways to carve it into your schedule to make those personal touches.
That's huge. I love that. I love that insight too, because I agree with you. Like my email, I spend probably part of my morning just clearing out just pure spam. Right. From the email. And then I'm left with a few emails. I'm like, okay, that's worth, the personal attention, but I'm going to look at the things that are more personalized, the actual email somebody sat down and wrote to me, the text message somebody sent me. Like that's huge. Before we get into the 2021, what software are you all using specifically for your databases?
We're in the midst of a transition right now. So we were on Shelby V5. And if you know that, I'm so sorry. It is awful. And so we're moving to one called Rock RMS, which is an open source database solution that has a really solid community, but it's not for everybody. So that's what we're using, Rock RMS.
Cool.
Thank you, George. Yes, Shelby is terrible.
I wish I had insight on that, but ours comes directly from Synod, and our gathering, like adult leader one, we're actually in the middle of a new program. Like we're getting bids from new programs to get all that information together.
What do you mean?
No.
Yeah, so like I think we use Planning Center.
Oh, we use Planning Center for people? Like who's in your
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we use Planning Center.
Yeah. I'd never heard of Rock RS. It sounds way above my pay grade, so I'm gonna stick with Planning Center. I've liked. I think the
Planning
biggest thing.
Great. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't know about what you guys think, but I think the biggest thing with the database is just, can it keep the information in an easy way, and can you access it and use it? Like anything else, if you're looking for the perfect database, good luck. But just find the thing that you can use and use that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So talk to me, 2021, what are your areas of focus? What are the best practices that you're kind of leaning into this year?
So we are actually, I mean, like this is just a new year of possibly having things going on. So it's kind of a fresh start. We're in a new neighborhood. Basically everything about our church has changed. So we're basically trying to be way more intentional about sharing the why behind every single thing we do. Because it really is like a fresh start. We are in a new place. We have I look out and I don't even recognize half the people at our church right now. Like it's crazy. But with that, I mean, we kind of took a couple months off of not really doing many events or anything. But we're hoping to be way more into the neighborhood. And I'm saying all this only because like there is whys behind the things we're doing. And I can get very sucked into, I mean, as most of us have tons of hats we're wearing, I can get quickly sucked into like, okay, I have to do like a video announcement and an event on Facebook. And it quickly turns into the template I already have in my head of like time, place, cute little, clever pun, laugh emoji, you should totally be there. That's what happens versus like actually digging deep, maybe having less events so that we can really share the vision behind it, how we're going to be impacting people, how we're going to be connecting as a community, whatever the why is. We're planning on having less confusion than 2020 of like if things are actually happening and being able to actually put some thought behind it and intention behind it before sharing those things. So that's the goal. We haven't really had any events yet to share, but it feels exciting to like start fresh with purpose.
Well, and I like that. I think sometimes we think communication and we do think we're going to share the what, but the fact that you're being intentional about sharing the why, I think that's so vital. One, because then people begin to understand the purpose behind what you're doing, and then they'll start to bring you really good ideas that fit the purpose instead of just, oh, I saw this other church over here do it. No, they can step in and say, no, we're here to connect the disconnected. And so I think this would be a great pathway to do it. And you're like, wow, this idea is brilliant, but it comes from communicating that why. And so I think that's a brilliant focus for 2021. Yeah.
This seems like a cop out, but for 2021, we're looking forward to 2022 and gearing up for a gathering, especially in the climate that we're in. Clear communication. I feel like people have had to hear the unprecedented times, and we are trying to figure this out language a lot. And so being able to give people like, this is a concrete thing, like we are having this event, you can look forward to it. Here is a resource. Here's what you can do. I think people are appreciating that when we can give it to them, and just instead of saying like, well, we're going to keep monitoring it and we're going to keep doing this, being able to give them a clear communication route of this is what's happening. This is what we're doing. And we are certain about it. That's pretty important in my sphere in this next year leading up to the gathering. That's
huge. Yeah, I love that. It's like at first you're like, yeah, we're giving up on 2021. And I respect that answer.
That's awesome.
No, I think it is so challenging. And I think too, I love that clarity of communication, because I'm tired of telling people, I don't know what we're going to do, or here's plan A and here's plan B. And like, I think too, like a stripping back even. I don't think we should feel guilty about that, like not doing as many things, but being more intentional with what we're doing. Actually this year, and it's kind of crazy, I'm sure, to our church, we stripped back all our Wednesday Lent services. So we're going to do Ash Wednesday, and we'll do like a video devotional midweek, but we're not going to do a worship service because of what we saw in Advent. And then we're going to really double down on doing Holy Week. But I think you need permission too to be okay with that, stripping back. But I love that clarity and just trying to give people some more solid in a very up in the air kind of time.
Yeah. To go with that, I mean, for clarity's sake, we actually did not have one of those weekly emails for the longest time where you give the roundup of everything that could possibly be happening in the next 3 years. But it's just like, we might as well put it in there. Or we even had what we called a communication card, what some people call, the bulletin announcements that have everything in it. So we've stripped everything away from that. We stopped doing a physical card because you couldn't put something in people's hands anymore. Yeah. Which was such a blessing because it takes a lot of time to put those things together. What we've done instead is we've moved them online. One of the things we just introduced in the last month actually was we started doing a weekly email. But for that weekly email, we have a specific meeting just for that email. And we say, this upcoming week, what are the 3 things that everybody needs to know? And that's it. Like we don't if it goes above 3, we cut it off. So we don't allow it to go over 3. And then, so people know that when they read our email, it's important, and you're not going to have to skim through fluff like that doesn't apply to me, that doesn't apply to me, that doesn't apply to me. Oh, there's something. Because people don't do that. As soon as they get into an email and that's like one paragraph and they're like, that doesn't apply, they don't have time to sort through our emails to find important information. So it's kind of on the communicator's job list to say what's important, what word gets bolded, because if they only read one word in this entire paragraph, they need to read this word. So you have to wrestle with an economy of words, and you have to say what's important, what's not, cut the fluff. Let's just give people exactly what they need to know. So I think for us, it's instituting those meetings on a regular basis to say, what are we saying that it does not matter? What do we need to cut so that when people interact with us, they actually do the thing we want them to do? So it's giving a clear next step and giving them just the base level of stuff, because they don't need a novel in their email. So that's been big for us.
Wait.
Yeah, I love that top 3 idea. I'm stealing that.
Yeah.
I love our email situation, which I feel like this is a safe place to nerd out about like emails, you know? But we do because we were just doing the weekly email. I was like, we're saying the same information every week. Like this, I wouldn't open it, 3 weeks in a row when one event has changed. So we've changed it. So there's like a different template every week for the month. And the first one is like, this is literally all the information, a little bit of the why, but mostly just like, this is everything you can expect. The next week is mostly more like a devotional, but like really showing the why behind like one event. And it's not really a communicating an event. Hopefully it can turn into that, hopefully there's a way to stick some information in. And then the next week, it literally says, screenshot this email. We just list the events and their date. And it's like, you don't even have to look at it, just screenshot it. And then the next week is a devotion from our pastor. So then there should be some type of event at the end, but for the most part, it's just like, hey, we care about you. We don't want to shove this stuff down your throat. But I've been way more excited about our weekly emails since we started doing that. And we're actually getting, like, we're trying to get like, respond, like, let us, email us back. We're a smaller church, so we can handle replies from those kinds of things, but trying to make it a little bit more openable and effective in that way. But I'm super into it. Highly recommend.
I love that idea, Emily.
Yeah, you all, like, don't be surprised if you all get gift baskets from my communications coordinator, because she's been asking me about how we can fix the weekly email forever. And I'm just like, I don't know what we can do, but I love these ideas. And I think, kind of a theme that I'm seeing pop out, between what Meredith is saying, Seth's saying, and what Emily's saying is that, there's clarity and consistency, but there's also simplicity. And, narrowing it down to his top 3, because Scott Chaffee, I hope I said that right. Sorry, Scott, if I didn't. He said, how do you share the why effectively when people stop reading your communications after one sentence? And I think, to the point, Scott, I would start by, reevaluating some of the communication and just get crazy simple. And this is the pot calling, whatever the phrase is. But, essentially, like, we have the same problem. Like, we're trying to share everything. And I think, I feel convicted, but also freed up to say, what's our top 3? And everything else is, it's important to somebody, but if it's not important to enough people, like, we can't waste all our time trying to communicate it. And, communications, you guys have also said, takes a lot of time. And George asked an incredible question here. George says, what tips do you have for maximizing time and communication impact for a church like mine with an all volunteer staff where most communications is done by the pastor? So what are some things where it's okay to automate? What are some popular places that you go to find stuff to kind of speed your own personal workflow up when you're trying to do communications?
That is a really good question.
I know at one point in my career, and mine kind of fluctuates with gathering cycle, but I would literally take an entire day and I would just like, this would be my day that I am doing only social media and I'm only working on this. And that really helped me. It gave me an overview of what I was doing for, you know, the week or 2 weeks, whatever I would do. But I would literally just schedule myself out for a day. And the amount of work that you can get done in an 8-hour day is a lot when you have no other meetings or no other distractions. Honestly, I've been working from home since March, and not having other distractions is really, really nice when I could just sit and like type and just go and go. But I know not everybody has that ability to just schedule out a whole day, especially when you're with volunteers. But I just setting aside time on the calendar of like, I'm not available and I need time to just work and get stuff done. That has really helped me in planning stuff for communication.
That's huge. I love that concept of just like blocking off bigger spaces to work on specific things. I think that's really good.
Yeah, for me, that I was facing some of the same thing. Monday for us is very full of meetings already, and then it kind of trickles out throughout the week. And just this past week, actually, I've taken my Tuesday morning meetings and actually shoved them into Monday as well, because it's really hard to work in half-hour blocks. But meetings that do need to happen need to find a place somewhere. So if you keep dragging this out and have an hour block or a 30-minute block there, it's not going to be beneficial to your creative work. So what Meredith's saying about batching is really important. I also think if you take meetings with people or you allow people to have access to your schedule, I think you have to be really protective of that. So a tool that you could use would be something like Calendly, where you would say, somebody wants to have a meeting with you and they email you and it's like, hey, I'd love to meet with you. Now you have to scour your open calendar. Instead, use a tool like Calendly, send people a link and say, yeah, we can meet whenever I have free time. Then they'll go and book time with you in your sections that you've allotted for meeting time. And I guess that would be like an automated way of batching your calendar to say, if I don't have a meeting space available because they've all been taken on Thursday, you can take next Tuesday, and that's just the way it is. So you got to protect your time.
George, that's huge. And George, I've been in your boat too. And I think what Seth is saying is big because, not all time is equal. And so something that I would do when it comes to workflow with communications or any kind of creative stuff, because, communications can be so creative, is I ask myself, okay, when do I tend to be the most creative? And what I've learned is if I wake up really early in the morning, like maybe a time that would make some sick, I know, but if I wake up at that time, a minute of that time is like 5 to 10 minutes any other time of the day for me. And I can get more done in that time with less distractions and be more creative. So the first thing I would ask myself before I even asked about workflows and stuff like that is, what is my most creative time? Protect that time so that you can do some of the other stuff. And then the other thing I do is I lean into templates hardcore. If I have to prep something for myself, I found like jumping on the Mac App Store and getting like a Pages template block is like so worth it. They're so cheap. They're like free or $7. But if I have somebody get most of the heavy lifting started for me, even stuff like Canva is phenomenal. But if somebody does the heavy lifting for me on the start, I found I can get more stuff churned out that's higher quality without taking as much of my time. Are there some other things that you all use like that that you would recommend?
I love the Over app. They've got templates. They've got, and this is not for time saving. If you have time and want to be creative, I think they give you more creativity than Canva does sometimes. And also I would like not feel bad about stealing stuff. Like if you go to like a church communications page or something, they're always like, take this, take it. We use Nucleus. Yes, Over app, Melissa, it's rad. But like we use Nucleus. They have a bunch of, we pay for it, but you can totally just download. They have captions, everything. Like, you don't want to do that necessarily every day, but you can totally supplement your socials and stuff through stealing or just relocating funds to have a place that kind of does that for you.
I definitely echo. I echo Canva. I'm a big Canva fan. I have lots of templates for lots of different things built in Canva, but the church communications group where people are, they're like professional graphic designers, and they're making, hey, I made this holiday post, feel free to use it. So I don't think it's stealing if they give you permission to use it.
God says, yes, take it. We're on the same team. You will not go to hell for that.
Especially if it's like a last minute thing that maybe just slipped your mind and you're like, oh my goodness, I forgot that, it's this day, this Monday. There have been plenty of times that I've done that in my career.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I think too, like, sometimes we say that phrase, George or anybody else, I'm not picking on you, George, but you said it, so we'll use it as an example, is like, okay, I don't have a big staff, because we think staff equals paid. But I think in a church environment, if you find a way to say staff is paid and unpaid, you can bring people around that just love and believe in the mission. They become a part of the staff, and then, you've got more people helping you out in those workflows. And then when you just help them find things to set them up for success, sometimes instead of paying a staff person, what you can do is pay for something like an Igniter Media, or, some of these different programs and fees and stuff like that, and then put them in the hands of a volunteer. Now the volunteer doesn't have to spend all their time. They feel more set up for success, and you're able to kind of offload some of the work that way as well. But yeah, that's huge. Now there's a lot of questions in here. Emily, you asked a really great one. Our church has multiple social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Faith Life, etc. TikTok, I know, is becoming one. I have 2 videos on TikTok, and that took me 2 weeks. But we are not consistently posting. What tips or suggestions do you have for creating consistent, meaningful content? And what are your thoughts about posting essentially the same post message on each of the platforms? Good, not good?
I'll start, but I feel like there's lots there. Personally, I would say pick the ones where you're getting the engagement, or you think there could be the engagement, versus draining yourself trying to be on every platform. And maybe try out every platform and see what bites. But and then on the other thing I would say is stories are huge right now. If you're going to be putting your energy somewhere, I would worry more about stories and less about feed posts. Not that they're not important too, but I think you can put a little less energy into your like Instagram, take a photo and put, that's a little bit easier, I think, to kind of get out, and then put the energy in the whatever words. Okay. In the stories. I'm a communicator. That would be my first thoughts on all of that. TikTok is hard. That's my other sentence. We are definitely getting a volunteer to own that, because
you need a youth. You need just a young person to do it.
Yeah. I got lucky. I talked to a guy whose son is a TikTok influencer in New York, and he walked me through a whole like training and stuff. But something he said was really interesting, especially with a new platform. He said, just spend some time on the platform before you actually start posting it, and look at how some other people are doing it. And then, really just go with a doable rhythm when you're trying to do it for the first time. Because that's my problem is I did ignore that advice. And I did post, immediately after starting the account, and haven't posted since. But I thought it was really good advice that somebody should take. But it is helpful because to your point, like, and you all know this better than I do, like, it's like each social media platform has its own rules and style of engagement. And we also sometimes forget that things need to be social. And sometimes we just get spammy when we're on social media. And so it just gets ignored because it's spammy.
I am okay with cross posting. I do, when I've done it for the gathering, I might use the same picture, but the caption I use on Facebook is not the caption that I would use on Instagram, because my audiences are totally different. So I think that learning what audience is on what platform for you can kind of help shape. I know Instagram for us is more young people, more youth. It can be a little bit more like conversational and like, hey, what's up? And emojis and stuff like that. Whereas Facebook is more like, these are the adults, these are the parents, these are the church workers. They want to know the facts and they want to know that we are professional about it. So kind of just dealing with that. I think knowing your audience is really important on the platforms.
Yeah, that's huge. There's an Erwin McManus quote. He wrote it in some random magazine article that it's stuck with me ever since. And he said, you know, when the church was first spreading, they didn't build roads to spread the gospel. They used the roads the Romans had already built. And so sometimes in communications, I think one of the best questions you can ask is, who am I trying to communicate with and what roads are they already traveling? Because to the point, you know, we're in a saturated communications market. So to try to create a platform to connect with somebody is going to be wasted time versus saying, okay, where are you already going and how can I be there too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I concur. I mean, I think we saw maybe 5 to 10 years ago, like the proliferation of things like the city or their other, like trying to build your own network within the church so that people will come and find volunteer opportunities and connect with each other and talk there. And I think what we found was, and no offense to those software companies or anything like that, but it's just people aren't going to do that. There's only so much space on your phone for apps. There's only so much space in your day. You're going to go to Facebook. You're going to go to Instagram. So we have to work within those systems. And I love Emily's point about stories, because stories are getting the priority right now. And you have to be constantly kind of evaluating where the algorithms are, like what is Facebook prioritizing right now? Right now, and it has been for a few months now, is groups. And so groups show up all over the timeline because that's what Facebook believes will keep you on the platform longer. And so when you think about what is beneficial for the platform, it's always keeping people on. So if it's groups, we have to think about how do we make a group? Is that important to us? Is this something we can do? We don't want to just start it and leave it. So you don't want to just jump into it and start a group. You also have to think about the sustainability of something like that as well. But yeah, and then it became live video, and now everyone's doing live video, and eventually that's going to go away because people will get bothered by it. Yeah, I think you just have to be aware of where the platform is headed and then work within that system. And stories are showing up at the top of the feed everywhere. And Twitter's even trying something with a thing called fleets, and it's not working. So you have to be aware of that. Yeah, but stories on both Facebook and Instagram are huge right now. So how do you use those effectively?
God, that's huge. Where do you all go to? Because there's so many trends, right? And it's such a quickly shifting landscape. Where do you all go to stay up on, you know, what's working or what's not working, or where things might be shifting and moving, and how you can kind of stay a little bit out front, if anybody could stay out front?
Brady Shearer.
Yeah. Church Tools, I think is what it's called.
Pro Church Tools.
Oh,
Pro Church Tools, yeah. They're awesome. I think everybody in literally every church communication group I'm in always refers back to something Brady Shearer has said.
I echo that 110%. And I think he does such a good job of distilling it down. So I could spend 5 or 10 minutes in my day, catch one of his posts. It's going to be incredibly valuable when it comes to church and church communications. And I haven't wasted time going down the rabbit hole, which is very easy to do when you're digging into that.
Now, so if you want it even less than a 5 to 10 minute video, he's on TikTok. You can get it in a minute.
Yes.
Life changing.
Yes. And, you know, circling all the way back to that comment, how do you help your church figure out that communication is important? Those are also easy things to share out with some of your leadership, so that they can understand the landscape and what's needed and help. So I love this. You guys have posted a ton of questions. So with our last couple minutes, I'd love to just kind of dig into some, like, we'll call it the lightning round. So I'm going to lightning round here if you're ready. Have any of you used text messaging software or service, auto dial messages? How about text with a voice message?
No. We use texting. We use TXT Signal. I don't know. There's plenty of them out there. We use it as a way to get people's information and get them connected to the church. So when they first arrive, it's text the word hello to this 5-digit number, and it helps us create a quicker connection.
That's cool. Yeah, we use text in church, I think. Yeah. That's terrible. I think we use text in church. Yeah, we do. We do. I'm confident in that. Okay, that's good. So, okay, how would you, and there was 2 questions about kind of our more senior members, because if you're in an LCMS church, that's just a reality. And sometimes they get missed because we're trying all the newer, trendier communication styles. But one question that came in on that, how would you suggest we help some of our members that don't have iPad, laptop, etc., are not tech savvy to receive online communiques?
I know when I was working in a congregation, we had a couple of people like that, not into email or social media. And we literally, like, they would come in and we would print out, you know, what the emails were, and the important stuff. And luckily for us, it was a small enough amount of people. It was maybe just like 3 of them that just didn't do it. So we would just print it out. I'm not sure what I would want to do if I had, like, 50. But just giving them another option so they don't feel left out.
Yeah. I love that. So they don't feel left out. Cause I think that's the reoccurring theme that I hear. If somebody doesn't feel like they were communicated with, it's like, oh, we feel like we missed out. We didn't.
Well, and it goes back to, they might not be tech savvy, but they probably know how to use a telephone, going back to just giving them that personal phone call, or a visit, even just to stop by every other week or so.
And that's huge. And I know some of you church leaders are thinking, oh, but I'm doing 10 or 15 other things. So whenever you hear an idea like that, don't think to yourself, how do I work that into my schedule? But think to yourself, who could own that? Like, who needs a great role? Because we've got people in our church that are shut in that want to do stuff and they have phones. And so they can be your people. And then you're sending the communique to one person who's then calling 5 or 6 people for you. And so I think that's huge, Meredith. I love that. Okay. And that goes along with the next question somebody asked about, how do you connect with those that are disconnected with your communications, especially like the elderly? So how are you all navigating those that are like, because the super involved person, they're going to check your website, they're going to go on your social media. How do you try and catch those that are kind of on the fringes or marginally connected, but you don't kind of want to lose that contact?
Yeah, I think it's kind of what you're saying right now. It sounds like the classic prayer chain, right? When like people are, you call 5 people who are going to call 5 people. I think it's spending time and investing in figuring out what your system is. I think I think we had a question in the group about men's ministry in particular, because guys are just notoriously hard to get a hold of, because they see your message, but they'll be like, I'll respond to that later. And then they forget, and that's fine. So it is like being like, okay, we actually need to create some sort of group system. Like I need to, as a communicator, it's better if I talk from the school. Like on the school side, we have something we call parent ambassadors. And so you need church ambassadors, people that you talk to, and it's the front layer of everybody. So we have one person for each classroom. And so we talk to them, and then it's their duty, responsibility, honor, privilege, whatever they want to call it, to go reach out to the next level of people, because it's just not possible to connect with everybody in a personal way with time. And so you need to equip, like you're saying, Matt, you need to equip people to say, we would love it, like we did when we were calling our membership. It's you have to divide and conquer and say, how are we going to accomplish this? Because personal touch is so important. Who are the first 3 or 4 people that I could have a meeting with, and we can start to figure this out together? Because it can't all be on one person. And I think this is where you tap into people that are waiting, who are sitting at home with nothing to do and they want to do something. I think this is an opportunity to start to tap into that.
That's really good, because there's another question here. What's your best advice for a small, growing, albeit painfully slowly, church? Are there certain areas you suggest focusing on? Email, social, video, etc. So like if you were in that vein, or where would you focus in? Like where would you spend most of your time?
For engagement or for outreach or?
Great question. I'm guessing they're asking about maybe engagement with their congregation, or or maybe because I know you're always trying to kind of do both too, which is a challenge, but that's the challenge of small and growing, I guess.
Yeah. For us, it would probably be the website. So like have your hub, the place that you own that anybody can access anytime and get to your information. So making sure that your calendar is always up to date, making sure that you're not mentioning Advent services on the homepage. At this point, we need to have everything clearly laid out, and they need to know where to go first, and easy access to all the announcements and calendar items. So having that hub is really important, because it answers a lot of questions that you may get otherwise through phone calls or whatever. So that has to be up to date always. And then I would probably be looking at texting, or a way to get texting. I think, what is the stat? It's like 98% open rate on texts right now, because people have to clear out that notification. So how can you start to use texting in a more important way? And then I would tear it down from there.
And following up with the texting, if you are a small church, like take advantage of that. That's not like a negative thing. You have the opportunity to actually call people. You have the opportunity to text them personally. You have, like, we're a small and hopefully growing, things are crazy right now, church. But I mean, going back to kind of sharing the why with people, I was like, guys, we're going to have like a little girls get together. I literally just want you guys to meet some of these girls that I've met. Like they don't know anybody. They're probably going to be a part of our church for a while. Like, and that's not something that you could do in a large church. I mean, you can hang out with small people. That's the thing that you can do. But I was like, we're going to have this girls group. This is why I want to do it. I'm going to tell them about it too. And yeah, just take advantage of there are benefits of being a big church. And I don't know where you guys are all out. A lot of times I'm like, oh, I want to be that, I want to do that. We want to be the big church, but taking advantage and seeing the beauty in the smallness before you grow. Hopefully, I hope you are continuing to grow, but to create that kind of community and authenticity where you're at right now, I think will go a long way as you have to expand your communication.
It's huge.
If we're answering questions, I don't know who to look at. I was looking at Seth a lot, even though he didn't answer.
Glad. I think I was affirming you.
I think that's huge, because too, the other thing, small church or any size church, you got to remember, people can't hold on to and retain a lot of information, and you're spending way more time in it than they are. So you're thinking about it every day. They're not. And so what I've always found is really important is, like Seth said, to have that platform, but to also make sure that where you send people is easy and consistent. So like whenever I get to a church, the first thing we do is we make sure the website, all the social media handles are all exactly the same. So all I have to do is look at somebody and say, go to Bethlehem Church Live on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or download the mobile app. Like, and if they don't remember if we're on there, all they have to do is type in Bethlehem Church Live, and then, okay, they're on there. So if it's easy for them to remember, and then from that standpoint, when you have a hub, if you're the one that's the main communicator on a Sunday, you're able to say one or two things multiple times throughout the service and get everybody kind of where they need to go. And so that's, I think, a great trick for any size church.
Yeah. And one of the things what our ministry team is working on right now is recognizing what we're in. We can't have large events, And so how do we adjust out of that, and how do we provide personal connection? And so they're working on this thing that we've tentatively called pop-up events. So anybody can host some kind of 10-person gathering, outing, something or other, and we serve as a connector. And so we're trying to get people to.
I love that so much.
Yeah. So whether it's going out and hiking, or whether it's going and figuring out a craft, or whatever it is. And so our role becomes that of connecting and hub and all that kind of stuff. So this would be the time to allow people to have permission to start something new, because we can't do a 50-person to 150 people on campus. It's just not possible, but you can do 10. And that's what the CDC has allowed us. And so we will figure out a way to provide connection, because that's what people are looking for right now.
Yeah. And, it's interesting you say that, because it's, they've done studies and stuff. The thing that really helps somebody stick at a church is just having that small core group of people that they're connected to and are deeply connected to.
Yes.
And yeah, that's huge.
And I love that. I'm sorry that I'm keep going here, but I think when you think about online and all that, and we want to go viral, or we want to get recommended, and people on YouTube find us and all that, the biggest thing is still referrals and word of mouth, and people saying, come to my church, it's making a difference for me. And if you're skipping that step and saying, we're just going to get online and everything's going to go great, but you're skipping the step of, we have this core community that we care about intensely, and we are providing care and connection and engagement for them. That is what, Lord willing, is going to move people to come to your church. So you do need to think about your core constituency and say, how do we provide what they're longing for right now? So connection for us, it's going to be hopefully through these mini events and personal connection.
That's awesome. So we're running out of time. I could talk to you all forever. But I know that you all have things to do since this is our long lunch, but I would say, Emily, we need to get you connected with Jen Eichman. Jen, there'll be info, reach out to Emily. She's got a great question for you. We've talked a lot about some of the pieces of that question, but she'd love to get your feedback on how to reach out on a campus audience. And then really quick, what do you all think about some of the things like Hootsuite, Buffer, stuff like that for doing the speed posting?
Love it. Recommend it. Any
Scott,
of them. I think they're all pretty great.
Great question. And then we're going to go, Nikki's our last question here. Who do you give access to your database?
Question.
Yeah, I went with the softball on the last one.
Yeah, very few people. And hopefully, I don't know Planning Center, but you need to figure out your tiers of access. Very few people need super admin access. So protect your data. It's so important.
Cool. I love it.
Agree.
No, I think that's huge. I want to thank you all so much for taking the time. I also want to let you know, if you're a church communicator and you didn't know about it, there's the Lutheran Communicators page, Facebook page on Facebook. It's not a hard group to get into. Seth is very kind about letting you in, and it's just an incredibly sharing group. I found some incredible insights on that. So definitely check that out. We will be sending this webinar out as a post. So if there's somebody you want to see it, you can share that out with them, that link. If you missed some of it, if you signed up for it, you will get an email that's got the follow-up link, so you can use that. And then we've also done more communications kind of stuff in the past. So if you go to kairosnetwork.com, you can actually click on the topics and you'll find communication live streaming, different things like that, and some other conversations that we've dug into. But I just want to thank you all so much for taking the time, for sharing your wisdom and insights, and just being able to hang out with us. And check out the kairosnetwork.com and find some more webinars that are coming up. But for now, it was a joy hanging out with you guys today.
It was fun.
Thanks, guys. It was fun.
Yeah.